Hannah, can we test your microphone?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Good evening. I'm Mark Kogler, Chair, and I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting of January 24th to order. Our first order of business after doing so is the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd invite you to stand and face the flag and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is roll call. Staff, would you please call the roll of the commission?
Commissioner Christensen. Commissioner Neal.
Here.
Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Here.
Chairperson Kogler.
Here.
Record will reflect that Commissioner Christensen's absent. He did notify us before the meeting that he's ill.
Okay. All right. Would you handle staff introductions, please?
Yes, Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Marcy Reynoso and Ashley Peterson, Administrative Assistants.
Darcy Delgado, Associate Planner.
Darren Dash, City Planner.
David Affey, City Engineer.
Hi, on the phone, this is Annie Branham from the City Attorney's Office.
Okay. All right, thank you. Item E on our agenda are general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda this evening. If you have an item you would like to bring to the Commission's attention that's not on the agenda, please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, are there any callers, Marcy?
No callers.
Okay. With no callers and no one in chamber, we will move on to item F on our agenda. That's agenda items proposed to be tabled or rescheduled, and I believe we have one of those, Mr. Frace.
Yes, item 1, the Thorndike office building's not ready tonight. We're recommending that we get a motion to continue it date certain to the next Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. And just for the record, that project is located at 279 Germain Way. So is there a motion to continue this?
I move that we continue the Thorndike office building to the next Planning Commission meeting. I'll second that motion.
A motion from Commissioner Jorgensen, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call a question.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Commissioner Neal.
I'll abstain due to a conflict.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
So the motion passes 5 with 1 absent and 1 abstained.
Okay. We will move on to our next public hearing, and I'm going to read quickly what the two components of the project are, see if there's any further comments staff would like to make, and then we'll go into our normal routine. Part of the project, which we're calling A, is Plan Development 22-04 for the Stravinsky Development Group Oak Tree Removal Permit 22-06 and tentative parcel map 22-PR22-0022 P22-0015. The project is located at 5175 Airport Road, APN 025-434-002. The applicant is SGG Paso Robles 413 LLC. The portion of the hearing that was shown as 2B on the agenda is plan development for 22-09 Dow Vineyards, P22-0069, 5175 Airport Road, APN 025-434-002. The the applicant being Dow Vineyards LLC. I'm sure when I went through those, you noted that the addresses are the same for both of these parcels, so this will be one public hearing. Do you have any further guidance you would like to provide, Mr. Fraser? Shall we begin?
No, yeah, the intent is to hear both of these concurrently.
Okay. So our game plan here, if you will be to have a staff report, which is going to be encompassing both of these projects. We will then move into commission questions, again encompassing both of the projects. It's likely that a lot of the big issues pertaining to traffic, environmental conditions, and so forth will be the same. We obviously may have some differentiation on site-related issues, architectural, landscape features, those kind of things. When we get into that, if the commission would just clearly articulate if you have a site-related kind of question, which of the two buildings, so to speak, it pertains to. So with that, I would ask, is there a staff report?
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, Darcy Delgado. So as mentioned, both items 2A and 2B, as they're shown on the agenda, there was a staff report for each item, but this will be one presentation, and I'll cover both projects. So that's the 2 development plans, an oak tree removal, and then a tentative parcel map. All right, so the site is located just west of the airport on Airport Road. It's approximately 20 acres. The zoning here is industrial. The land use is business park, and so the 2 uses that are being proposed with the development plans are wine storage and distribution, and then wine processing, and both those are allowed in the industrial zone. So this project, we did an environmental document, and that was prepared and circulated. So we did a mitigated negative declaration, and for the purposes of CEQA, we studied the entire 20-acre site as one project, but then certainly you know that we have separate development plan resolutions and so forth to kind of break down the specifics of the project. And then just to also clarify that the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to City Council on the various entitlements for tonight. All right, so I wanted to start with a composite site plan just to kind of show you both projects. So here in red, we have parcel 1, and I've highlighted the proposed building in blue, and then followed by parcel 2 with then the building. So parcel 1 is also known as Stravinsky, and then parcel 2 is known as the Dow project. All right, so here is the parcel map. As mentioned, it's a subdivision of an approximately 20-acre site, just under 20 acres, into 2 parcels, roughly equal in size. The idea is that, so Stravinsky, which is parcel 1 in red, has direct access off of Airport Road, as does parcel 2 via flag lot for the Dow development. And what I'm going to do is dive into the details of parcel 1 first, or also known as phase A or the Stravinsky site. So the development plan for this parcel is an approximately 196,000 square foot building to be used for wine storage and distribution. So you'll see on the site plan, this is an illustrative site plan. The staff report knows that they have 79 parking spaces, not counting the 20 spaces that were for the truck docks. As part of this project, there are 3 oak tree removals proposed, and due to the amount of oak tree being proposed to be removed, they would be required to plant replacement oaks, and so the estimate is for there to be 9 3-inch caliber replacement oaks to be planted for the loss of those trees. Another aspect I wanted to highlight on this site plan to give the Planning Commission some context is a noise attenuation wall or berm, which is included with the project. So this is something that came out of the environmental document. This plan doesn't necessarily show the wall location or berm, but I wanted to put it on here to note that that was in response to the north. You have county, there's vineyards and a residence, so the wall would serve to mitigate for noise. All right, staying on Stravinsky, here we have several renderings that have been provided by the applicant to really showcase the frontage that you'll see, so the northeast perspective, the focal point of their building. You'll see the signage in the foreground, and then moving on to the north entry perspective, they've provided some great details on their main office entry location. And then, of course, we have on the elevations, which are included in the staff report, you'll see elevations for all four sides of the building, but these are just kind of the more emphasized sides. So then the northeast street perspective, again, you can see that focal point of the building. The applicant has designed the building to be in a contemporary style with a design that includes angled elements to kind of celebrate flight aviation due to the proximity to the airport. So that was something that was identified by the applicant. They've chosen an earth-toned color palette to tie the project in with the surrounding landscape and industrial agrarian materials. The building itself will have perimeter concrete tilt wall panels, and they'll use metal siding and concrete panels as well. All right, so here is an elevation from where you'll see the southeast perspective. I just wanted to draw the Planning Commission's attention to this area right here in red. So when this project went to the DRC, there were some comments made about how the project, I'll use the word handsome, was very handsome at the main office area, and that this southeast perspective area, it needed a little bit more emphasis. So the applicant did provide additional landscaping, and it's reflected in the renderings, but they also included some low featured walls to help with screening, mechanical equipment. I believe there's a transformer. And then it's hard to tell in this photo, but I'll move to the next one. That there is a slight angle, and so that was also to help kind of play off of the airport theme that they have with the angled elements. As mentioned just a moment ago, there were some comments made by the DRC with regard to kind of improving certain, just generally the elevation that you see from Airport Road. So what I have here is really just to let the Planning Commission know that the applicant submitted several sheets, and this is one example of detailed landscaping. They did separate, they have various sheets for the different landscape areas around the building, so I could not put one comprehensive sheet together, but this is just to let the Planning Commission know in your packet for item 2A that there were several sheets related to detailed landscaping in response to comments made by the DRC. Oops. Okay, so moving on, we have the Dow illustrative plan. So this is parcel 2, which is the flag lot. This project is an approximately 157,000 square foot building, and then this is for the use for wine production. And the way the project is designed is to have phase 1, where which is shown in gray. You'll have a 90,000 square foot portion of the building built, along with their crush pad, and then phase 2, which is just over 67,000 square feet. So along with the building and the crush pad, they're going to include a just under 8,000 square foot wastewater treatment plant. Their site plan reflected 76 parking spaces, and then highlighted in yellow, which I clicked too soon, but here it is again, is the noise attenuation wall or berm that they're required as part of the noise mitigation. And so Dow is showing on their plans that they're going to do a noise wall. All right, so just moving on with Dow's renderings. Here we have a view driving onto the back lot. So this is coming, driving down that flagpole portion, and just the main entrance is, you have office buildings, which I guess I can go to the next slide. Here we go. So kind of in white is where you have the main office entrance. To the right of the screen, where you see a covered area, that is the crush pad. And then obviously to the far left, you see the Dow sign, and there's some docks over there. So although the building is not very visible from Airport Road, just because it's situated behind the Stravinsky development, one comment that was made at DRC is that the building has been designed as though it does have high visibility. The building itself is a pre-engineered metal building, and they're using various metal panels in their different colors, which are part of the Dow brand, using the bronzes and rusted reds. And then with this building, they have various stepped elements, especially along the roof line, which helps to break up the massing. And here's one more rendering. So this is the view of the office entrance. So here again. And then in the staff report, there are elevations included for all sides of the building. All right, so this landscape plan is, without getting too detailed, is essentially a detailed landscape plan. And this came in, this was submitted in response to comments made by the DRC. So initially, Dow had, when we took this item to the DRC, it was more of a schematic landscape plan. So in your report packet for item 2B, you will note that there is a more detailed landscape plan with accompanying plant selection material. So some of the trees that really stand out are the cypress and then the California sycamore. So you'll have, going back on the west property line, where the noise attenuation wall will be, you'll have the California sycamore, and then they're proposing to use the cypress trees along their eastern property boundary adjacent to the Stravinsky parcel. And then, as you can see from the plant selections, they have a large variety of different ground covers. All right, this circulation diagram is also something that came out of a response from the DRC. So as you can see on the screen with the blue, that represents the circulation of a large truck that would be dropping off grapes in the crush pad. And then the red looks like they can also then, if they need to, circulate all the way around the building. One of the comments at the DRC was if this would conflict with the parking in front of the offices, and the applicant responded that they would schedule the truck deliveries at certain times, and so you wouldn't have the situation where you would necessarily be blocking somebody who's parked in the office entrance area, that they would not be blocked. So, and the applicant might expand a little bit more at that time, later on this evening. So here is just kind of repeat of the rendering for the signage, and then kind of a close-up using an example of how they're going to engrave their sign into some reclaimed wood. And then out of the DRC, there was a comment made about the potential to have signage closer to Airport Road, since, as we know, this does not have high visibility. So the applicant has put together another proposed sign. It doesn't sound like they're definitive on doing it, but they wanted to have it as an option, it sounds like. And they have replicated the reclaimed wood with the recessed letters. And then just located on their frontage on Airport Road. All right, so today an addendum was published on the city website, and the Planning Commission was provided a hard copy prior to the meeting. So we did receive public comments. So Air Pollution Control District, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, and Caltrans all provided comments, and so that's included with the addendum. The city did provide a response to comments. There's no action needed in response to the comments by the APCD and the DTSC comment letters, and so that's reflected in the addendum notes. A lot of their comments were repetitive, and we already had mitigation measures that really addressed their concerns. So that's why there are no recommendations to change anything. So staff did determine that we would make changes in response to the Caltrans letter, and I'll dive into that with the next slide. Okay, so traffic. First, I'll touch a little bit on traffic. So this project, there was a traffic impact study that was done as part of the environmental document. The project will generate approximately 646 new vehicle and truck trips per weekday, and that includes 64 a.m. and 68 p.m. peak hour trips using warehouse trip generation rates. Because of the trip generation I probably get ahead of myself. There were several conditions of approval that were included as part of the mitigation monitoring plan, and then we included those as well as conditions of approval, kind of repetitive, but something that's kind of standard for our reports. And with the letter that was received from Caltrans, it seemed that there was another option to move forward with, and so staff has went ahead and made a change to condition of approval number 9 in response to that Caltrans comment letter. And that condition of approval number 9 is the same for both, in terms of the numbering, is the same for both 2A and 2B. So just to kind of summarize, we had a condition that required the applicant to pay their fair share cost for, and to there were several options they could have chosen that were identified in the traffic report. And instead, the applicant will be required to install improvements at the Airport Road intersection, which would restrict southbound left turns onto State Route 46 East. So this change is reflected in response to that comment letter, and it does seem like it would be a measure that is equivalent or more effective than the mitigation measure, which I believe is mitigation measure TR2. And then as reflected in the mitigation monitoring plan, and then also reflected as the condition number 9 in the conditions of approval. We do have the city engineer here tonight. If the Planning Commission would like to dive into this a little bit more, certainly we can spend more time on it. Another change that I wanted to make note is that pages 41 and 77 of the agenda, we need to strike out, as shown on the screen, that the conditions associated, there's checkboxes under item F, that they are tied to the issuance of or certificate of occupancy, and they're not associated with recording of the final map. All right, so the Planning Commission has a lot to consider tonight. I know with both items combined into this presentation, it might be a little confusing, but I was hoping to break this down. The project does need to be recommended to City Council, so with 1A, I have really highlighted the draft resolution that pertains to the mitigation, the mitigated negative declaration. And so that is one motion, I guess, that would need to be considered. And then B and C pertain to strictly the Stravinsky parcel, so that's under agenda item 2A. Draft resolution B pertains to the development plan and the oak tree removal permit. Draft resolution C pertains to the parcel map. And then for item D, that draft resolution A pertains to Dow, and it is for their development plan. So staff's recommendation would be to move forward with recommending this to City Council. As noted in option 2, there's recommend approval with modifications, and there are some modifications that we need to probably go over tonight. The Planning Commission could also refer this back to staff for additional analysis or recommend denial of the project by adopting findings of denial. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Darcy. You did a nice job weaving all of that together. Are there presentations from the applicants or their representatives? If so, would you step to the podium and provide us with some information? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, my name is Neil Thompson. I represent Stravinsky Development Group and the Parcel 1 development. Just quickly, I'm going to have another presentation by the architect who put these fine drawings together. We are a large development firm that we own most of our buildings that we've constructed over the last almost 30 years. Most of them are in Napa area, and they're all wine warehouses. So the refrigerated warehouses, not only do we own the buildings, but we own several of the tenants that are in the buildings. So we're intimately involved in the distribution, storage of good wine. And so one of our tenants, Wine Direct, is a major tenant in Napa, and they are also in the Paso Robles area in a number of different locations, and they need to consolidate their operations into one building for operational efficiencies, obviously. So that's why we are here with our project. I'd like to have CJ Horseman provide a little bit more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
All right, good evening, commissioners and chair. I appreciate your time tonight reviewing this project. Again, we're going to be talking about the front-facing parcel, the one along Airport Road, and I think the Dow representative will have a follow-up presentation. So Darcy covered a lot of this tonight, so I'm going to be brief, and we've been working with staff throughout this process. As Darcy covered, this property is located on Airport Road, close to the city limit, and it's adjacent to similar developments, kind of like the Weeman Construction and Paso Robles Wine Service building. The existing property is being subdivided, and this project will be on the eastern portion of the subdivided property along Airport. So as Darcy mentioned, the architecture is in a contemporary industrial style, kind of reflecting the use of the facility and other winery projects in the area. The building has been articulated with strong tower elements to kind of break up this long facade. And in response to feedback from DRC, we kind of incorporated some more human scale elements. Darcy mentioned the fencing along that frontage. We've also included awnings along every door to kind of bring it down in scale. And then additional decorative fencing as you move to the rear of the property to bring more human scale elements. The angled awnings Darcy mentioned are kind of just giving shadow lines with angular features, just a small nod to the airport use. And then earthy, rusty colors were selected so the project kind of feels like it's part of the landscape a little bit. It stands out as a building, but these are more earth tone colors like vintage copper, which is that primary rust color, and accents of featherstone and volcanic ash, which are some of the other colors featured. So design principles that we established kind of for this front elevation, we carried out. You can see the east elevation there is facing Airport Road. North elevation shows kind of a balance of how those elements are carried out throughout the rest of the building with some of the vertical elements, the strong towers and the vertical striping, which actually those panels are outset 4 inches. So you get a nice shadow line there while keeping the efficiency of the building there as well. I did a couple aerial site diagrams just to kind of break this up and just wanted to point out a couple key features. So as Darcy mentioned, this project's adjacent to Airport Road, so we used layer of landscaping along that frontage. We actually set the building back, I believe it's like 85 feet, kind of a voluntary measure to create some layering and build up before you get to such a large building. And that will be, there'll be oak trees in that as part of our mitigation. We'll also have kind of a dry riverbed used for water basin. And I think it's a good look to kind of then start before the building steps up. So we've also worked with the arborist and the city to kind of try to save as many oaks as possible. So there's 3 oaks being removed, 2 of which would have been removed no matter what went on this site. They're part of the public improvements. They're kind of overhanging the existing roadway. And then there was 1 in the dock area. So, but 3 of those oaks, is there a laser? So 3 of those oaks in this area, we talked with our arborist and we're able to figure out that they're healthy and we want to save. So there are additional oak trees saved. Also, we are going to go with a berm here, and that's in the grading plans that were submitted as a part of this package. It's not in our, I didn't render those as part of this, but something a little bit more natural. It's about a 7-foot rise, and that's going to mitigate the sound concerns from the truck docks to the neighboring parcel. This is the second aerial kind of showing, again, the same features from the eastern perspective. And if these are helpful for reference, we can bring them up again. And that just concludes my presentation. I think, again, staff presentation was pretty thorough. And we're available here to answer questions about operations, the architecture, or anything that you're looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the aerials also. Those were very illustrative. Dow representatives care to offer a few comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and the committee. I appreciate the opportunity. Just on behalf of George and Daniel Dow, it's really a big thank you for the opportunity to bring a world-class production facility. It'll be our primary production operation to the city of Paso Robles. I'm excited to be able to make world-class wines and to share our people and culture with the city. We've created a lot of jobs since we started about 12 years ago in Paso. So again, excited and appreciative. Thank you for your consideration. I think, Darcy, you did a great job in presenting a summary, and appreciate you and the staff. And if there's any questions, obviously let us know, but thank you again, appreciate it.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Neil Cassidy, I'm the CFO and COO for Dow Vineyards.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. We've heard from staff, we've heard from the applicants. It's time for the commission to pose any questions that we might collectively have. I'll start with Commissioner Neal.
No questions at this time.
No questions. Commissioner Gibson.
I'm just going to try and go in the order of the 800 or 900 pages here, so bear with me. On page 47, and I saw that you had on one of the overheads, I just have a question on the Stravinsky site for the south side. What actually is going to be in between the driveway and what it just looks like? It was identified as a brown, looks like just basic dirt on the south side running along I guess it'd be an easement going back to Dow.
This is Neil Thompson responding to that. I believe what you're looking at is the flag lot. The flag lot is on the south side of the building against the southern boundary of the property. That flag lot is 50 feet wide, and I believe the driveway right now is about 26. So you're looking at a brown stretch there that is truly on the Dow parcel. That's the remainder.
Okay, so the response I'm looking for would be coming from the Dow people then?
That's correct.
Okay. Do the Dow people have a response?
Good evening. I'm Heidi Gibson, Studio 2G Architects, the architect representing Dow. And if, Darcy, if you can show the landscape plan.
Yes, we're getting an echo.
Yeah, is it?
We'll pull it up.
So that flagship area is going to be fairly heavily landscaped. During DRC, our main comment, actually one of the only comments we really had was to do a more in-depth landscape plan. And you can see a portion of that landscaping on that flagpole area, and that's just going to continue down that flagpole section of Dow's parcel.
Okay, just let me stop you there just to make sure I'm following what you're saying. So this actually is identifying your parcel, and primarily it's showing landscaping on the west side, but you're saying on the right lower corner, the landscape that's illustrated there is going to
Correct,
be all
on
the
the
way
east
along.
side, yeah,
All
going
right,
out
all the way
towards
down the
Airport
driveway.
Road.
Okay.
It'll be landscaped all the way down.
Okay. So now that I've determined that that's your responsibility, not the Stravinsky project, what sort of fencing is going along that driveway?
It's a mix of, Darcy showed a collage of the different types of landscaping, so it's going to be very variated landscaping with some dense shrubbery and some spots of color.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to flip to my next question. All right. So I have a concern. I appreciate the input and the comments from the three public agencies, and I'm noting that on the Caltrans letter, what they're indicating, and then the city's response. On page 782, it's identifying, it goes into quite a bit of detail about that there being an issue of the median acceleration lanes, and it identifies that the turning vehicles on Jardine and Airport are 300 feet and 625 feet respectively. And they're identifying that those actually should be significantly more than that. In essence, like 4 times longer, right?
I'm sorry.
It's 4 times longer. Okay. I'm not really seeing anything to mitigate that. I saw a series of things where we were going to recommend an or, but we were going to recommend that they do something or something or something. Okay. So I'm just going to state that I'm not real comfortable with the or, but I'm also not really seeing anything that really addresses specifically the median acceleration lanes issue. I understand what the Caltrans saying, and again, what your response is, but where in this voluminous document does it address the issue that we're just woefully short of having the acceleration or deceleration lanes?
So I think Dave Appy, city engineer, is going to come up and talk to that and how we've determined that the alternative condition is equal, if not better, than what was initially proposed.
Good evening, David Athy, City Engineer, Chairman Kogler. Commissioner, so right now, the traffic report analyzed the project in terms of what are the different existing conditions on Highway 46 East. Two of the conditions that were identified by the traffic engineer. By the way, we have Michelle Matson on the line tonight with the traffic engineer, so she can answer any technical questions or anything, clarify anything that I obfuscate. Anyway, so those two median acceleration lanes, based on the acceleration of a truck, a large semi truck, are shorter than what was needed to get a semi truck up to 55 miles an hour. So with this project, we looked at potential safety impacts from trucks and vehicles turning left on the Highway 46. So in order to mitigate that traffic safety impact, we looked at what are the different options. So the three options that were listed are on the screen up here and stricken out. 1 through 3, construct the Wero Bridge, basically get everybody to a signalized intersection at Golden Hill. Well, that's the optimal choice. That would be the one that staff would want, but that's not in reality. This project doesn't have the firepower to build the Wero Creek Bridge. It's going to actually take a village. So the city, traffic impact fees that we get and everything else to get this bridge built. So anyways, so what are the other options? One of them is extend one of the acceleration lanes on Highway 46. That could be either Jardine or Airport Road. When we looked at Jardine, however, there's an intersecting driveway from one of the wineries out there. So just eliminating their access, their through access to go westbound on 46 isn't an option. So we consulted Caltrans about these issues, gave them the traffic report, and what we settled on was these three options: build the Wero Creek Bridge, get to 46. If that happens before they become operational, we're still going to want the left out blocked, which we talked about here on 46. So it's not this project's, but to get really kind of to the matter of your question, I think it's not this project's responsibility to fix the median acceleration lanes. It was going to be a condition of approval to mitigate any kind of future safety impacts that are there. However, Caltrans has offered up another alternative, which is prohibiting the left turns out on the Highway 46 as an option. Get everybody going on the 46 going right, go down to the Golden Hill signal. People can turn, do a U-turn there and pick up trucks and cars, and then larger trucks can go through the future Union Road roundabout and back to either Golden Hill or Union Road, go eastbound. So that's how this is set up. It was set up prior to this to give Dow and Stravinsky options for mitigating their impact. However, Caltrans has gotten back to us and said their preferred method of mitigating this impact is to prohibit the left turns out on the 46. They both do the same thing. Get rid of that left turn on 46. Either make it improve the acceleration, so trucks are merging at 55 miles an hour or more on the 46, or eliminate that left turn, which is more preferable from a traffic safety standpoint. You no longer have those conflicts there with cars turning and cars going straight. Send them down to actually a controlled intersection where they have right of way is established by the signal.
Okay, so I'm following what you're saying, and I totally agree with the idea that if we restrict trucks from turning left, that will help. Okay, but I am out in that area all the time. Okay, I mean anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
Right now, the right-hand turn lane is almost impossible sometimes. It takes over 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes. By having 600, if I'm doing this, said that right, I don't want to misspeak, 600 some trips a day, is that correct? It's roughly every 4 minutes. I'm concerned about them even being able to turn right, and then what that's going to do to the traffic backing up for people trying to do the same thing as I'm doing which is turn right.
Sure.
That is literally my experience. I'm trying to turn right, and it's very hard already. So I'm wondering what the solution is for them to be able to turn right, because there's no acceleration lane for them turning right unless I'm totally oblivious to it.
Right. So we got three things. The applicant has indicated to us that most of their trucking leaves the site prior to 6 a.m., prior to 7 a.m., and they could verify for us. So that's one thing. They like to get out early before there's any traffic. The big trucks get out before traffic even starts to pick up on 46. That's how their other facilities operate in the Napa area. Number two, we have time of day restrictions that they have accepted. So they won't be able to leave the project site until certain time periods of the day. This will help alleviate those additional impacts you're referring to from those truck trips. I believe it's condition of approval 10. And then the third thing is I had the traffic engineer look at this, and by eliminating, we have about, when we did the traffic counts, there was about, I think, 10 vehicles in that hour that actually turned left. So there's not a huge demand for left turning vehicles there during peak travel times. But by eliminating that left turn, which, as you probably know, backs up, it keeps the people from turning right. We can, they've indicated that actually improved level of service from D to C, which is a big improvement from where, at existing. So actually by prohibiting the left turns, we're going to improve level of service operations, which is often referred to as delay. How long are you going to sit there? So it was going to improve it in the short term. And then once the Railroad Bridge is built per the plans, it'll even make that even better because it gives all those trips another choice of a path of travel.
Okay, but the answer to part of my question is there was no consideration or conversation about doing anything with a acceleration turning right.
No, that was not an acceleration lane. Hasn't been part of the requirements there. We have a bridge structure that's there, which would essentially require a widening of the bridge, which is beyond the level of impact of the project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That.
All right, I have some questions for the Dow representatives.
Could you identify the nature so then who might want to speak to it?
I'm not sure who does what, so. Yeah, so I just have some basic questions. On page 817, you identified that there's going to be a phase 1 and a phase 2. Can you provide the estimated timing of those two phases?
Yes, Neil Cassidy. The first phase will be the crush facility, fermentation tanks, and so I think that our feeling is that that's a 2.5 to 3 year time frame before we would then execute on the second phase. So I would say 2.5 to 3 years just on phase 1.
Okay. So then on, I don't see a page number, but towards the back, you're showing it says Exhibit L. You're showing the traffic pattern or traffic flow. And my understanding, this is a question that DRC had for you as well. I didn't sit on DRC, but I'm just curious. So on this Exhibit L, where it showed the blue lines and then the kind of salmon color, perfect. When is this traffic circulation going to be built, knowing that phase 2 is not going to happen for a ways down the road?
Yeah, so the crush pad will provide for everything in blue. So that concrete area will allow for the trucks to deliver grapes and to circle and exit out. The employee parking in phase 1 is actually on the south side of the building, and that the small parking area towards the front is for guest parking. So that would be very limited. There's no public facing aspect to the building. It's a production facility. We'll have approximately 30 employees on site at the peak and closer to 20 non-peak seasonal times of year. And the number of cars relating to employees, again, 20 to 30 per day, and trucks peak season during harvest, 11 trucks per day, and then only 2 per day on non-peak season periods.
Okay,
So-
could you help me identify where is the employee parking? So it's
Yeah, at
gonna
the
be
bottom of the screen
at the
there.
very bottom?
Yes.
But you said you have how many employees going to be working there on a daily basis?
There'll be approximately 20.
Okay. All right, so that's not 20 spaces. Where's the rest of the parking?
I believe it's more than 20 spaces. I think there's
I might be mistaken.
25 or 30.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, thank you. Those are all my questions for
And the
now.
red is fire access. So trucks, great trucks will follow the blue path, and the red is only for like an emergency around the building for the fire department.
Okay, but you indicated the salmon's not going to be built until phase 2.
It'll be part of phase 1. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Heidi Gibson, Studio 2G Architects. So the entire roundabout, let's call it, that is going to be built, and it's going to be, asphalt. So the portion for phase 2 will.
Our comm system doesn't like it. We have a really bad echo.
Is it my voice?
There you go. Or likes you a lot.
So to answer your question, that phasing will be part of phase 1, would be that fire truck turnaround path.
Okay.
And also the water treatment area, and then the parking back there also.
Okay, so just to clarify, make sure I understood what you're saying, everything here, both blue and the salmon colored, or what you call red, that will all be built as part of phase 1?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibson. Mr. Covarrubias.
David, hate to do this to you, but can I ask a question for clarity, please? Understand everything that you've already explained as far as the no left, keeping everybody right onto 46. If I understood right, the idea is to go down to Golden Hill and utilize the new roundabout that's going to be there. Is that accurate?
That would be for the trucks.
For the trucks? Mm-hmm. Any concern about the impact that number of trucks would have on that area as well?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Well, I mean, of course, we always have concern. So we checked in with the traffic engineer, and they didn't indicate that there would be an impact on operations at the roundabout at that location from the additional truck trips.
So when they make the roundabout, is the idea that they circle around and come back down Golden Hill and then make a right onto 46? Or are they going to go down the other way towards Barney Shorts Park?
So they could make either movement.
Either movement. And there's no concern there as far as just thinking there's going to be a bottleneck anywhere with?
No.
Okay.
No, not with the way that the roundabout is designed. So it's designed to, it's not designed for a stop type, movement. So it's a yield movement. And anticipate the trucks would keep flowing through there. The nice part is the same peak hours on 46 that the project is cannot send out trucks. It coincides with the same peak hours in the city itself. So those trucks are likely to be there when there's lower traffic volumes through those intersections.
Got it. Okay.
Both Golden Hill and, both Golden Hill and Union and 46.
And Union. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Darcy, question. There was a mention of a noise, if I make sure I want to understand something correctly, there was a mention of a noise wall for parcel 1, call it parcel 1. The location of that noise wall, that has been identified or not identified?
Yes, so there is a condition of approval, and it relates to the mitigation plan, and it's very specific about the length of the wall. So that came directly out of the noise study. And so here on the screen, you can see in yellow, that's the location of a berm or a wall. So one thing to consider, and there's a condition on the condition of approval, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's also a 20-foot wide easement on the north length of the entire 20-acre site. And so the applicant will need to revisit the berm versus wall design in terms of the final construction drawings, because They will not be able to put a 7-foot tall berm in a 20-foot wide easement that is for road purposes if it were ever to be required to be improved for road purposes. So that is a condition, and then that could, again, get sorted out with construction documents in terms of if they're able to accommodate a berm further, out of the easement versus needing to do a wall.
So the length of that noise wall was determined by whom?
By the noise consultant.
By the noise consultant.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was specific to the house that's on the property to the north. So it was a certain distance that specified they can go further if they choose, if they want to go beyond it, but they can't go any shorter.
Okay. And do you know the height of that noise wall by chance?
Yes, so the berm or the wall has to be a minimum of 7 feet.
Okay. And so it meets all of those requirements.
Yes. So their proposal does meet the requirements, but again, because of the easement, they'll have to massage it some and to figure out if the berm is going to fit where they had proposed it with the site plan. But the wall is acceptable, and it's written into the resolution to be either or.
Okay. And there is on parcel 2, there is or isn't a noise wall also?
So there is also a requirement from the noise study for there to be a wall along the length of the western property line. And so that was included. They're doing a CMU wall, 7-foot tall CMU wall.
Same thing.
Same
okay.
thing.
Just want to make sure I heard all that right. Okay. As far as I love the design of the building. So those responsible for that did a great job. Any concern over the reflection because there's so much metal on the building? Any concern with reflections of any type or anything like that hasn't been discussed or brought up?
There wasn't a concern that was brought up, especially when we do the environmental document with regard to a reflective material. I don't know, I couldn't tell you what the roof materials are, but usually that's the concern in the areas because of the airport. But we've even had, solar projects in the vicinity of the airport, just northeast of this and across Airport Road, and with more, I would say more reflective panels than what you would typically see on a rooftop. But the applicants could also respond to, the materials and what they know about them, the reflectiveness of them.
Okay.
Heidi Gibson, Studio TG Architects. The panels that we have chosen are of a matte finish, and they are of a dark color, both the cranberry red and the brown. It's really like almost the Spartan bronze is what they call it, so it's really, really dark color, and it is a matte finish. And the highlighted white area, that is actually, you wouldn't even really see that because it's really dwarfed by the Stravinsky building and also the landscaping.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Let me just look over and make sure there's nothing else I need to ask right now.
CJ Horstman, MW Architects, for the Stravinsky building. Again, as Heidi said, it's non-reflective. It's matte finished metal panels for the siding, and then it's a panelized roof system with a PVC coating as a cool roof, which is a Cal Green requirement for a building, but it's a non-reflective PVC, not a metal roof.
Thank you. No more other questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Hi, Darcy, a couple questions and then I'll have David come back. I always have a circulation question. It's a follow-up to Robert's. This is mostly for clarification. Page 13 of the staff report, it talks about an avocation easement. Can you just explain that? I know it's in the airport safety zone. Could you explain what that easement is on this development?
The avocation easement was previously recorded, and it basically just alerts the property owner that they're limited in what complaints they can make against airport operations that occur in the sky.
Okay. Thank you for that. And this is to you, Darcy, again. It says on page 14 that there's a revised mitigated negative deck. Why was there a change in the requirement for underground power? It seems like the future of the city was to have underground, and that changed. What can you explain that?
Sure. So when this is partly just a error when I was putting together the initial study in the MND. So there were several instances where we had information that they would be undergrounding, and the Stravinsky project has been moving forward with some of their construction documents, at the risk of this project moving beyond Planning Commission and City Council. And so in the time between the MND being prepared and some of that information between construction documents that are occurring and being submitted to the city engineer, it was determined that the overhead power lines did not need to be undergrounded, and that is something that is consistent, I think, with the project to the south, the Wyman project, which had a 4-lot parcel map, and my understanding is they were not required to be undergrounded. Dave might have a more, why with regard to, I know this is the edge of the city, and there might be a reason with regard to, the next location beyond the city limits that is out of our control. So it might have something to do with that. And so in the staff report, there's just a notation that that is acknowledged that we don't need to recirculate the MND. And I'm actually glad you brought this up because there was another error that I made that I can enter into the record. So the MND also incorrectly stated that there would be curb, gutter, and sidewalk. That was just probably a copy and paste situation. Sure. So there it will be no curb, gutter, or sidewalk. So that would also, but both of those situations we've determined that they are not impacted with that need to be reevaluated by CEQA because they weren't lending to creating any impacts with regard to that specific environmental factor, whether it be recreation for sidewalk and then aesthetics for the undergrounding. So it doesn't affect the MND, but just a clarification that those are included in the staff report to be brought into the record as far as the MND to be part of the final MND.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious what we were doing with other things out in the airport area because I know in general we're trying to get things undergrounded. So maybe David could answer that further. David, can I give a follow-up question on circulation? Why don't you do that one first?
Absolutely, here to help you. You want me to answer the question?
The underground part,
undergrounding?
yeah.
So Darcy got it exactly right. So the project that was next door was not required to underground. This is the edge of the city. We see this as more of an industrial type use area and no need to underground these power facilities that are existing in the area.
Okay. And then as a follow-up to Robert's question, I personally like the idea to not let the left-hand turn. It's just a horrific intersection. So help me envision if a truck turned right westbound on 46 and did go to Golden Hill Road to that intersection and then did go towards the roundabout. I mean, I didn't envision that for trucks. I really envisioned that more for community throughput. So could you explain a little bit about the configuration of the roundabout and how it can handle these kinds of trucks? And then as a follow-up, should they choose to go down towards Barney Schwartz Park? I know there was some traffic calming and narrowing there. Is that really a wise choice? When we approved the hotel development, there by the storage facilities, there was some narrowing. I'm just worried about the maneuverability of a semi-truck.
So for the first, I think the first question was regarding the roundabout and the design. So I was just having a text conversation with the designer. The roundabout itself is designed for the largest U.S. legal truck, which I believe is 67 inches, and maybe the Stravinsky folks can help me on that length. So it was initially designed for that. Subsequently, we found out, the Public Works Department did, that there was a trucker who had a 115-foot truck where they haul those big, D9 rippers and bulldozers out of their yard. And so that roundabout has been modified now to accommodate that truck. So a full-size shipping truck, grape truck that you currently see on our roads will easily make it through the roundabout. And they've got two choices. They can go all the way around and come back the way they came, or they can come out and turn right onto Union Road and go back down to Barney Schwartz. Now, in terms of your second part of the question, I was recently working with the design engineer on that. We've left the lanes, I believe, at 11 feet, which is plenty of width for the truck. There will also be a widened shoulder in that location. of the hotel itself. There won't be curb gutter sidewalk right next to that Union Road. It'll look very similar to what Autocraft and the new Union Road Fire Center, Fire Station 3 looks like, where the sidewalk separated and there's like a side area there. So they won't be constrained in that zone, and they'll be able to move on quickly to Union Road.
Okay.
I mean, 46.
46.
Yes.
Eastbound, yeah.
Yes.
I know, okay.
And then interestingly enough, and I'm sorry
No, that's okay.
to interrupt you, that actually left out is going to be, when that hotel
I know.
develops, that left out will also be eliminated. So it's going to be
For the other development, right.
Yeah. So it'll be a series of right turns in that whole corridor to improve safety.
And is there an educational component to get the truckers to know where to go? I mean, is that going to be confusing for them and circulating here or there? Or they just figure it out over time?
You know, truckers are fairly smart. They don't like to drive where their trucks are going to get stuck or they have to back up.
Right.
However, I think it might be great for the Stravinsky or Dow folks to kind of how you maybe tell the commission how they prep their drivers and give them directions on how to, navigate the area. I don't know personally, but I would guess that, they check it out beforehand, but the Stravinsky Dow folks could verify that, I think.
Yeah. Stay with me a little bit longer. 646 per day, it sounds like a lot. It just does. And I know you're an engineer, you do the calculations with vehicle miles traveled. Is there any differentiation in the typology of the vehicle, a truck versus a passenger vehicle? Because I see a truck having more difficulty. In the modeling, is there any differentiation in the typology of the vehicle?
In terms of
safety and throughput and that kind of thing?
Certainly, larger trucks are slower. So they're, safety-wise, they have a much bigger impact than a single-family occupancy vehicle, single-family occupancy vehicle. But there's no, we really look at it from safety impact standpoint, which was the truck. How fast does it need to be going when it merges on the 46? For instance, if we were talking about acceleration lanes, we looked at it from that point of view, from the left turn point of view. Vehicles accelerate much faster. They don't need as much space to get up to 55 miles an hour because they're lighter. Mm-hmm. Their power to weight ratio is different. So, I think the proposed mitigation goes a long way. It just eliminates the left turn and any kind of safety issue associated with getting up to speed. And
by eliminating that left-hand turn and you're slowing up the traffic to go right, and you're saying it actually improves your model, right? I think that's what I heard you say.
Right.
But it's backing up this right in front of that water park where all those kids are, and I know they have another parking location. I think what you see is we're trying to find the best thing to make this work, the best opportunity. And so I still have a lot of questions, and I know my fellow commissioners do. So
I would add that this is the interim condition. So we've got plans for the Wero Creek Bridge, which will divert these trucks up to 46 for the left. That'll be a preferred left turn for them. They don't like getting off the highway system, going through roundabouts, and coming back. So once that bridge is in place, the preferred turn will be Golden Hill. That is also a medium turn condition. Ultimately, we'll have the Union Road overpass, and those trucks will be eliminated from going, by the water park at all. The water park will that volume on that road will drop significantly versus the new Airport Road, Union Road overpass that's going to be used. So it's a 3-stage process.
Crystal ball, though, where will win?
Well, we're moving forward. We're looking at the funding, I believe, and Warren can chip in if I'm wrong, but I believe it's in the next 2 years. We're going to construction on the Wero Bridge.
Yeah, so the environmental is done on the Wero Creek Bridge. We're in construction drawings now. That means we could go out to bid probably by the end of the year. We believe that is a fundable project, so that's likely operational within a 5-year period.
So they would go to Golden Hill and they'd turn left at that intersection.
Correct.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jorgensen.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say that I really think these are both very handsome projects. And as an architect, that's usually where my attention goes, and I have all kinds of questions, but I don't have any. I think they're great. So my questions are all related to process, I think. So Darcy, the first couple, on page 814, it's the mitigation measures. The one on regarding carbon offsets is talking about offsets shall be purchased according to the City of San Luis Obispo's preference and within the City of San Luis Obispo. That doesn't sound right, does it?
So this was taken directly from the study, the study air quality and GHG analysis. It could be, I have never had a project that required carbon offsets. It could be that it is not City of San Luis Obispo's preference, and it could be Paso. Maybe they've done this study for other cities.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody cut and pasted and didn't earn the money that the City of Paso Robles paid them.
But I can make a note if we want to include that
please
further with the Planning Commission's motions if that needs to be amended.
Please, I think your consultant needs to take another look at that. Okay. My next process question has to do with EIR coordination. We know that there's another EIR in process for the big project down the road on Airport that has not been completed yet, as I understand it. How does the additional traffic, since that's what we're talking about right now, how does the additional traffic from this project fit into that EIR that is in process, or this project is in anticipation of that? Because this traffic would be upstream, so to speak, from that other project. How is that all coordinated? Because we're approving this knowing in the back of our mind that something just as big or bigger is on its way, but how do we weigh that in when it isn't officially submitted to us yet?
I'm going to phone a friend.
Okay, good.
Hi, David Athy, City Engineer. So we have proposed, pending, and approved projects in the city, and when we do an EIR like the landings, we consider all these projects. And you even consider vacant land and the traffic it'll generate. So we look at those. We'll take the Stravinsky Dow approved project now. That's already factored into the landing. So when the landing takes all that into account, those mitigations for that project take this traffic generation into account as the underlying base level. And so the mitigations are based on this project, other pending projects that we have in the city. We keep a list of those projects, and every EIR that comes in considers those.
So what pending projects did this EIR look at or take into consideration?
Triana, Dow, Stravinsky. There was the project that was the Commons project on Wisteria that was approved by Planning Commission.
But this EIR took those into consideration?
This one took into consideration the ones that are around it, but however, since this is before you first, they don't have to mitigate for the landing project. The landing has to mitigate for their project, for this project.
Okay.
It's underlying.
So it's good to be first.
Sometimes it is good to be first.
Okay. All right. Thank
However,
you.
it does take, so it's all the same traffic engineer. I want to say this, they didn't ignore the landing project, but they did look at this project as what are its impacts to the local area, and then what is the landing doing in the future? For instance, if the landing moves forward, they're going to widen the road. In front of their project. So they're going to mitigate their frontage improvements. They're going to mitigate their impacts to the intersections. But in the EIR, we look at a much more global impact range than a mitigated neg deck.
Okay.
So I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I
Yeah,
did.
I think so. Yeah, don't sit down because I have more. So I'm driving a truck from one of these two projects, and I want to go east, and I don't want to do all this falderall about funny turns and traffic circles. Why don't I just go over Dry Creek to Jardine and turn left?
They could do that. You know, and if that's a concern of the Planning Commission, then we could always condition the project that they only use Airport Road for exiting trucks.
I don't really have a comment one way or the other if that's a good idea or not, but it didn't seem like it was studied here, and so that's my concern. It doesn't seem to me that what I think would be a whole lot easier. It didn't appear to me in the traffic study that was given a very viable option. It shows 5% of the traffic would go that way, but how was that determined? I don't know.
So that's a good question. So we do look at travel time and assign trip generation to various parts of the whole circulation network out in this area, and it's basically based on driver behavior is predicated on getting the fastest route to their destination. So in this case, Central Coast Traffic Engineering, assign the trips based on those travel times. And so using Airport Road was estimated to be the most traveled, I guess. Well, it got its percentage of trips assigned.
No,
to it.
I can understand that, but now that we've made this change, I wonder if that would still, if that weighting would still be the same. I mean, it seems like it got more complicated for the truck drivers, so that may change their interest in going over Dry Creek.
It could.
So I don't quite know what to do with that concern, but it's a concern, and I don't know that we've addressed it adequately now with this new recommendation. And just to verify, I think I heard you say that the time restrictions will still be in place?
Yes.
Okay. And did I hear you right, Dave, a little bit ago, that you said that Stravinsky, the trucks would be out early, like 6 to 8?
They have indicated to me that their operations, their truckers usually get their I can let them talk about their operations, but they've conveyed to me is that they get there early in the morning and leave before traffic starts picking up.
And that sounds good, except that the traffic study says they come between 9 and 3.
Well, that's what we've been told. That's inbound.
Well, I'm just saying, which is.
So our prohibition is leaving the site, not coming to the site, because the turns are a left turn in, which is from 46 eastbound on the airport, which isn't identified as a safety issue. And the other direction is either Jardine left, or right in, or airport right in to the site. And those haven't been identified as safety impacts.
Right.
Or level of service impacts.
Right. So you're saying the departing trucks are the early morning ones?
Correct.
Okay.
So the prohibition is for trucks leaving the site during the peak hours.
Okay. And then my last question, and again, going back to this new proposal, which I think is probably a really good one. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just concerned that we're making this decision based on, oh, that sounds like a good idea, without all the analysis that was done for the other options. So do we have any idea of what the level of service will be then at Golden Hill with the U-turns and the left turns? Are we diminishing that? Is that going to be at a lower grade for Golden Hill?
We have not studied that specifically. We did consider this option early on in the development of the traffic impact study. However, that could be something that we look at is level of service. However, given that my judgment would be that we would not impact level of service at the Golden Hill roundabout because of the traffic restrictions, restrict the traffic to those same peak hours that are a problem on Highway 46 on Monday through Friday, and then not so much on Friday and Saturday because we don't have those same problems that 46 does on the weekends. We would not see a level of service impact from that additional truck traffic outside of those peak hours.
Okay, then I have one last question after my last question.
Sure.
So this is back to an EIR process question. So we're being asked to consider this new traffic pattern solution, or I don't know if that's the right word, but recommendation that was not included in the EIR and so was not publicly put out for public review. How does that work with our recommending approval of the EIR?
I'll see if I can give it a shot. So it would be entered into the record tonight, and then the changes to the MND resolution would need to be part of the commission's motion to reflect the changes to the mitigation measures that were included in the MND. That would be the process, but maybe Warren can expand on that.
Yeah, that's the overview. So keep in mind, the comment letter that we got was from Caltrans. So they're the state agency in charge of state highways. So this is a state highway. These are improvements and mitigations on a state highway. So they don't just make arbitrary recommendations. And as Dave said, this whole corridor between the city and Caltrans has been under review for decades. So when the Caltrans comes and finally says this is the best solution, you can give that great weight, and that is what we're doing here. In terms of your CEQA issue, so CEQA is focused when we're talking about traffic on vehicle miles traveled, which has been identified as not being an issue on this project. The second issue is safety. So the issue at Airport Road and 46 is safety. So the recommendation Caltrans is making to you, to the city, is basically how to address the safety issue there. There's currently issues with the unprotected left turn. This left turn restriction with the pork chop that we showed on the screen addresses the safety issue. Now, it does move some trips to some other spots, and that could be a level of service issue, but level of service is no longer CEQA. It's still a general plan issue, and it is an issue, but in the hierarchy, and especially if we're talking about CEQA, we're focused on safety and VMT, not level of service. Level of service is still a general plan issue, and it is still a concern, and we are moving some trips in an area where they currently are. So there is something that's going to happen there. But this is also an interim measure until we can get to the ultimate fix, which is step one, build a $25 million Wero Creek Bridge, and step two, build a $50 million 46 overcrossing bridge. So there's a fix to all this, but it's $75 million and it'll take a while. Yeah. So in the short term, we're going to have to send some trucks in a location that, would rather not, but it is the best solution available. At least that's staff and Caltrans analysis at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
I had the distinction, I guess, of sitting on DRC for both of these projects, so I have seen them before. I want to compliment both parties on the architecture of the buildings. I think individually they're quite well done, and they seem to harmonize with one another. Whether that was designed or whether that was accidental, it was well done either way. I just have one procedural question for probably staff, and I'm referencing page 47, which is the site plan for the SDG building, just as an exhibit. The south side, when I was listening to the presentation on the SBC building, I thought I heard there's an emergency access along that south side. When I look at the site plan on sheet A1 on page 47, it basically, I think, shows me the driveway, roadway, whatever you want to call it, back to the Dow parcel. And there does not appear to be any parallel road there. So I'm assuming I construed that in error, and that is one roadway providing access back to Dow, and then I presume there's an easement that allows this driveway at the back of the distribution center on the west side to connect to that roadway. Is that a correct assumption?
I see Neil getting up. I was going to try and take these off. So my understanding is that the flag portion, that you could exit behind the Stravinsky building and use that flag pole that is Dow as emergency access for the Stravinsky. And then Neil, maybe you want to talk about if there's any other connections.
Certainly, the Neil Thompson Stravinsky Development Group. Because of the size of the building, the fire code requires fire access road all the way around the building within a certain number of feet, no more than 30 feet, no closer than 15 feet. And the same's true with the Dow facility, and you've seen that in that salmon color. But rather than, and of course Dow requires a access to their building, so there's an access road, and it has to be accessible by fire equipment, so that defines the width of the road as being 26 feet at a minimum. Rather than having two roads coming out at the corner of Propeller and Airport Road, which would be kind of confusing, we combined both roads into one road, because the road that's serving the Stravinsky development is only fire access. You can't drive around the building. There are fire department chains and the locks and bollards at both the north and the south end of the access road that's on the west side of the building, between the building and its corresponding storm drainage basin. So there's no driving around the building. Also, there's a corresponding bollard and chain for some access to the fire pump and electrical room that's at the southeast corner of the building. So by doing that, we've eliminated having two big roads right next to each other. So you're correct. You're only seeing one road.
Okay. That obviously makes perfect sense. I assume that to be the case. Is the wiggle in the road that occurs to get you close enough to the building for fire apparatus?
Exactly. The wiggle in the road was exactly in consultation with emergency services of the fire department. Their maximum distance that they could be from the building is 30 feet, and so that's why the wiggle in the road.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We've been through questions by the commission. This is a public hearing. I think we'd like to open the public hearing, and I thank the public either in person or calling in and listening to this for their patience. It's been a bit to go through. At this point in time, I'd like to open the public hearing and see if there's public comment. Is there anybody in chambers here who would like to speak to this project? If so, please step up to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide your comments. Once, twice, seeing none. We will move on to call-ins. Do we have anybody calling in on this item?
No callers.
We do not. Okay. In that case, we will close the public hearing, bring this back to the Planning Commission for discussion and eventually a motion. I'll follow the same path as before and start with Commissioner Neal.
Yeah, so the left turn out on 46, I suspect this is you, David, would limit all left turn movements at airport on 46. So I would guess that additional impacts would happen on Jardine, Dry Creek. So I think it's a good solution. I've been at airport at 4 o'clock where the backup is pretty intense, and it's probably the 2 or 3 cars making a left turn movement there that is holding everybody up. So I think it's a good solution, but I'm not sure that, because Jardine is a pretty busy intersection as well. I suspect the left turn movement isn't as great there as it would be from airport, but I think there still is an impact. So I'm not sure that was a question or more of a statement. So I don't know if you disagree or agree, but I think that was my
The only thing I could add, Commissioner, is that the commission could put a condition on the project that they use airport road, that truck traffic use airport road.
And another thing, you're only making a recommendation tonight to
Correct.
City Council. This is, Caltrans did give us this comment yesterday, so the city engineer and traffic engineer have had limited time to do a full analysis. So I think that's definitely, you could recommend or, require that additional analysis of both the Golden Hill and the Jardine intersections be provided before the council makes a final decision on the mitigated neg deck.
Yeah, and I think I would be interested in the potential of limiting truck movements on Dry Creek and Jardine if the traffic study found that it was impacted negatively in a great degree. Now, back to the draft resolution A for the Stravinsky and Dow developments. I'm a little bit concerned about what we're being asked as part of that. It is asking, it's starting as whereas no written comments were received, so obviously that will need to be adjusted. Additionally, it says the final MND, but I'm not sure that we have received all comments because comment period closed today. And I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and paragraphs following that are impacted by my concern about the word final. The other resolutions have what I think we have worked through before that says based on the information we have today, the Planning Commission recommends the approval to council of the MND. I am far more comfortable with that language being inserted into Resolution A than I am, and I don't think I can approve the Resolution A with all these final MNDs because I don't know if we are going to receive any further comment. So that's just my statement, and I think I'd like to see the Section 3 from Resolution B included as opposed to the other items in, in Resolution A. So those are my comments. I too really like this project. I think the architecture will be enhanced significantly along Airport Road. And I think they're two very fine projects. So those are really my only concerns with what I'm seeing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Neal. Commissioner Gibson.
Could I have our city engineer? Yeah. No, I'm not sure why you're sitting down.
I need to get a reserve parking space.
Okay, so to pick up on Commissioner Neal's, because it was one of my questions, because I wasn't clear on this. I just want to make sure. Let me ask this another way. There's no left turn being proposed for any vehicle, not just trucks.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So that wasn't clear to me. So I think that's going to be a issue for people that are used to turning left right there. But there was also a comment in several places about, I think the words were like that these projects will participate in other affected road funding. What other funding would they be participating? Where bridge?
We'll look. Well, one is traffic impact fees. They'll have to pay their traffic impact fees.
Right.
Two, we're in discussions with the applicant on a road maintenance type fee for truck trip type fee with them.
Okay. Anything else? Any of the other roads that they're going to be participating in? It was pretty vague. It didn't really go into any detail at all.
No, that was the two items.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I actually like this project. I I think these projects are appropriate for the site. I think I like the design. I'm not an architect, but you know, when I see something I like, I can recognize it. Honestly, I really only have a concern about the traffic, and I don't know that it's fair. I think David put it that, you know, we have this project, but we can't really expect them to pay for the deficiencies that we already have. We have deficiencies in Airport Road. We have deficiencies in the ingress and egress. We know that. And my fellow commissioners brought up even much larger projects that are going to be maybe, 2 million square feet ultimately if they get built out. And none of that's going to happen with the roads that we have now. So I'm just I'm weighing this, with a project that I like, with designs that I appreciate. I just wrote down some comments, that the idea that, Union Road, coming out of Union Road, turning right, there's no acceleration lane either, because obviously if I'm headed to the airport, I'm coming from the airport, I'm heading to the airport, there's no acceleration lane. And there's a same bridge there that's an issue, that you really can't build an acceleration lane coming off Union Road. Golden Hill Road is notoriously short left turn lane to turn left. I mean, it backs up regularly. That is a horrible intersection on Golden Hill and 46. That left turn lane is, people try to turn left and then it backs all the way up, and people can't go straight or turn right because the left turn lane is always full. And I do anticipate that people, regardless of what you say, they are going to try to go down Dry Creek and use Jardine. So I just anticipate anything out there is a problem from an ingress and egress. So I appreciate the attempts to mitigate this, and I also appreciate Warren's comment, which I was picking up on, that this is going to be maybe short term, especially if the projects don't actually end up being built out for 2.5 years. And things actually start getting built, like where gets built in 5 years, that we have maybe 2.5 years to suffer through this. But I think I want to give validation to Commissioner Jorgensen's thought and concerns, because I have the same ones about we're approving projects that shouldn't have to bear the burden, but at the same time recognize that they're participating in the problem. And I'm prepared to support this project, but I do want to express those concerns. I mean, I don't know that any of the whether it's Caltrans or any of the others adequately assuaged my concerns about the traffic. I just think it's going to be horrible for at least for a few years. And as more and more projects get built, it's just going to be even worse. So it just shows how incumbent it is on some of those projects being completed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibson. Mr. Covarrubias.
Thank you. I also like the project. I think the architecture is beautiful. I love the landscaping detail. I love the amount of landscaping that's going to be injected. So high respect for the folks that designed it, the building and the landscaping. For the sake of not trying to be too redundant, I think we are going to share the comment about traffic concerns. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Our city continues to grow, especially out in that area. So beyond the traffic, it's interesting that it dawned on me also that the road maintenance and the wear and tear on our roads in that area. I mean, already for such a beautiful city, which we do have, one of the things I think is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things we struggle with is the upkeep of our roads. We're challenged to already maintain our roads in good standing, especially in the highly traveled areas. So for what it's worth, beyond the traffic, my concern is just the road itself, and how quickly I think they're going to wear as we continue to add, especially semi-trucks and large vehicles on these things. So for what that's worth, but overall, I'm prepared to support the project and move it on to City Council. I think it's well done as far as the building and the landscaping. So thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
You know, Robert, I have the same feelings. I think it's a beautiful project. And I've struggled, just like many of you have, with the circulation problem. I'm fifth generation. I've traveled that highway for many, many years, and I know well enough to be careful when I approach the airport intersection. The tourists that come to the area, I'm not so sure they know to be careful there, and so I'm concerned about the safety, and I want to find the best solution. I do want this project to go forward. I wouldn't mind suggesting to City Council that they look at some traffic analysis of the options before putting the final stamp of approval. But I do like the project very much. I think it's a beautiful project. I just think we need to be careful. Those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
I don't have any additional comments.
I commented before on really the quality of the design. I think that both of these applicants and owners and their representatives have brought to us. I also would like to compliment my fellow commissioners on their, I think, thorough review and insights on some of these difficult issues. These have come before us again, and as has been said, they will be back again in other projects. And I trust that perhaps Commissioner Neal, in his analysis of the approach on the specific resolutions that we're thinking about tonight, may actually point us towards a motion in that regard. So with that stated, are there any other comments by planning commissioners? And I'm looking to my right to see if anybody might have a motion.
I may potentially, if I could get a few questions by staff answered, if possible. Item 5, the Planning Commission recommends City Council to direct staff, and that would be after the council meeting, correct? Item 5 in Resolution A says the Planning Commission recommends City Council to direct staff to file a notice of determination with the San Luis Obispo County Clerk and the Office of Planning and Research within 5 working days of approval of the project. So that would be after the council. Okay. Let me see what I can do here.
So before you make a motion, I think staff's made some notes based on what we've heard, and I think we've got some additions that we could maybe add to our recommendation that might address some of the concerns in terms of making a motion.
Fire away.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, Chairperson.
All right, so these are the notes I have to help guide the Planning Commission. So for modifications to draft Resolution A for the specific to the MND resolution. So the first would be reflecting page 814 to change, to make a change to the correct jurisdiction. So that's for mitigation measure GHG2. The second item is to adopt response to comments as included in the addendum tonight. The third item is to note the change to mitigation measure TR2 in response to the Caltrans comment. Number 4 would be to update findings to reflect public comments received.
And okay. Additionally, I think I would like to replace several of the whereases in Resolution A with, and I'm questioning if this is appropriate, with, so on page 22 of and it's Resolution B, Section 3, we have a paragraph that says, in accordance with California Environmental Quality Act, the regulations promulgated thereunder, in accordance with the Environmental Quality Act, Public Resource Code 20, Section 2100, CEQA, the regulations promulgated thereunder, 14 Cal Code Regulations, Section 1500, the CEQA guidelines, and the city prepared an initial study, mitigated negative declaration, that analyzed the proposed project's environmental impact. The MND was made available for a public review from December 23rd, 2022 to January 24th, 2023. On January 24th, 2023, the Planning Commission conducted a duly noticed public hearing and considered the entire administrative record as of that date, including staff report, the MND, the MRP, and oral and written testimony from interested parties. And then I would like to substitute that for all areas that say in Resolution A, starting with, whereas the final MND consists of the MND, a copy is included in Exhibit A. I'm sorry, starting with no written comments were received. And then the next paragraph, whereas the final MND consists of the MND, a copy of which is included in Exhibit A. And then just everything that says final MND, strike, and then just replace with that section 3, as we have seen from Resolution B, and the other 3 resolutions included in the report. So with that, I will see what I can do. I would like to recommend the City Council approve the project by adopting draft Resolution A with proposed changes, recommending that the City Council adopt the proposed mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting plan. Those changes include change in jurisdiction for air quality, greenhouse emissions. Did take very good notes on this. Per staff's request, or per staff's notes. Does that make sense, Warren? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you want us to basically make the changes to update the CEQA resolution so it basically matches the wording that was in Resolution B.
Correct.
And then Darcy made 4 additional comments. You want to incorporate those that were read into the record.
And then I would also, just to make things even more complicated, add, if additional analysis warrants, limit truck traffic on Dry Creek and Jardine for eastbound traffic.
So why don't you task staff with reviewing that for prior to the City Council meeting?
Okay. That's what I've tasked the staff to do.
Okay.
Sorry, that was incredibly painful, and I apologize for that.
But appropriately thorough. So we have a motion A as modified. Excessively, yes, but I think we inherently understand the basis of that. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jorgensen. Any discussion by the commission? Commissioner Gibson.
Question, because of all the changes. So I believe Commissioner Jorgensen mentioned something on page 814 for the city of San Luis Obispo. Is that included?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And we're going to come back and do another motion on the next item.
Yeah, so this is just for the mitigated negative declaration recommendation that then covers the 2 projects. Then we'll come back and make individual recommendations on both projects.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Staff, please call the question.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. That's one resolution out of the way. Do we have any additional motions? Commissioner Neal.
I'd like to move to recommend the City Council approve the project by adopting draft resolution B, recommending the City Council approve plan development 22-4 and oak tree removal permit 22-06.
I'll second that motion.
Staff has a clarification. Earlier, we had talked about the changes to condition of approval number 9, which is was in the presentation, as well as the standard condition for section F. And those are for both, that is for this project, for this motion. And then also it is noted that we would need to modify to update the CEQA section finding to match resolution A.
So I believe that the CEQA section I borrowed from resolution B.
So you want to leave that exactly as is?
So I'm pretty pleased with that
Okay.
CEQA section. But if you can help me with the changes to the the development agreement, or whatever those first two items were.
So I think.
So we want the change to condition 9 as shown on the screen.
Yes.
And condition F.
Thank you. Yes.
I hadn't accepted a motion, so we'll take that as a modified.
It's modified.
Motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
I thought that's fine. Yeah.
We have a second by Commissioner Jorgensen. Okay. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, please call the question on the vote.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, we've done 2 of the 4. Is there another motion on resolution C?
I would like to make a motion, Chairman Coe.
Commissioner Neal?
May I ask staff, it would be appropriate to include those 2 adjustments to this resolution as well, or just the first one regarding Cal?
So let me double check. I think I think that this one is only going to be the standard condition F.
So I'd like to move to recommend to the City Council to approve the project by adopting draft resolution C, including changes to F.
Standard conditions, section F.
Standard condition, section F, recommending the City Council approve tentative parcel map PR 22-0022.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion on amended resolution C and a second by Commissioner Gibson. Is there further questions or comments by the commission? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, we are 75% of the way through resolutions. We have one left, draft resolution A pertaining to the Dow site. Do we have a motion?
Chairperson Kogler, I move to recommend the City Council approve the project by adopting draft resolution A, approving plan development 22-09.
Okay, we have a motion straight up, just like that. Perfect.
Don't think there's any changes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, it wasn't me making the motion, but I'll definitely second it.
Commissioner
So
Neal
were there any
seconds.
changes? Okay, we do need the change to condition 9 again.
And standard condition,
Okay, so we need to
Section
change,
F.
add these.
9
I'll
and F.
accept those as part of the motion.
Okay,
And I will accept that as well.
okay. We have a second does as well. All right, we have a motion as modified. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Was Neal the second on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. That concludes the item.
Thank you and good luck.
And I'd like to apologize to my fellow commissioners for making that so difficult.
This,
What would we do without you, Commissioner Neal?
navigating this combined project hearing was not going to be easy, so I appreciate the efforts of all that got us through. Okay, that covers our public hearings for this evening. We will move on our agenda to discussion items by staff.
There are no further discussion items.
All right, well stated. We will move on then to consent calendar. We do have 2 items under consent calendar. One is the DRC minutes from December 19th of last year, and the Planning Commission minutes for January 10th of this year. Do we have any questions, comments, changes, or a motion to approve?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
We have a motion from Mr. Jorgensen.
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Covarrubias. Any further questions, discussions? Hearing none, please call roll on that.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias? Aye. Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, number 5 is other reports. We have 3. We have the Paso Robles Streetscape Ad Hoc Committee report.
So we're still trying to schedule our next meeting. I think Marcy sent out some dates. We still are looking for a date. So Marcy's going to be contacting the committee members, trying to pin down a date in February. So be looking for some emails on that.
Okay, we'll keep our eyes open. How about the Housing Opportunities Constraints Committee Zoning Code update?
Yeah, so we are working through the next really big section, and so we're kind of forecasting that that'll go to HCOC, and then we'll probably likely have a planning commission study session as well, targeting probably around March.
Very good, thank you. Item 7 of these, the DRC rotation schedule, which we can only carry through February since we don't know exactly who's sitting in all these seats after that. But any known conflicts, February more so, I guess, January, given where we're on the calendar. If any arise, I and maybe others can certainly cover. So we'll let that play out. All right, we'll assume that's intact. Planning Commissioner's comments. Let's start on the other end tonight. Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you. Just want to send out a thank you to Darcy. Great job tonight. Really, really well done tonight. So other than that, thank you all.
Commissioner Davis.
No, same thing. Great job, Darcy.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
I ditto that as well. Will we be meeting on Valentine's Day?
Yes.
Why is it no fun?
Commissioner Neal. Commissioner Gibson.
I have no comments, thanks.
I would just reiterate again, this is a great bunch of people that sit here, and the different perspectives that we bring to this and the experiences and the depth at which we went into this, I think, without belaboring it tonight, speaks volumes. And very insightful work by all, and I think the outcome showed that, and I'm appreciative to all of you for your efforts. Well done. Staff as well. Particularly proud of the commission tonight. So with that, commissioner comments are done. Staff comments.
Yeah, just a couple quick update items. The first is on that 46 overcrossing project. So that is a joint project between Caltrans and the city at this point. We're getting very close to releasing the mitigated negative declaration for that project. We look like that'll be released in early March. There'll be a public workshop scheduled probably in the middle of March, and then that will go through Caltrans' final approval process. Then that would move us on to the next step, which would be the construction drawings. So it would move us forward to funding and bidding for the project. So we do expect that project to start, moving ahead as well. There'll be a lot of public notice, a lot of public discussion about that. That doesn't require any planning commission action on it, but we will share the documents on it so you can kind of keep up to speed on that project moving forward as well. We are in the process of soliciting for applications for planning commission. We have 3 seats that are subject to reappointment. So Darcy's going to give us a quick update just on that process, and then also the reorganization dinner that we traditionally do.
I think you met me right. You said Darcy, Marcy. Hi. So we are, happens all the time, going through the process of collecting applications for both Planning Commission and Housing Authority. So we have put that out there to social media. So if you see those around, if you know anybody who'd like to apply, we'll take all the applications. And then on that same note, we are in the process of planning the the dinner that we do every year. I'm tentatively looking at the last Sunday of February, as we did last year. I believe that falls on the 26th. So I'm going to be nailing down Firestone is where I'm currently looking at on the tap room there, on the patio there. So I'll be sending out more information as we have that.
Okay, great, thank you. Any word, Marcy, typically what I've experienced and we've experienced before is this conference for planning commissioners that's done at a state level. In the past, sometime has come up right after kind of this recognition, like in early March. Is that scheduled this year at all? Is that a factor? Is that still not happening?
The what again?
Help me with, do you remember the organization? It's like the league.
I haven't heard anything about it. I can go and look and see. I feel like it was in March last year, but I'll definitely take a look and send out some emails to you guys if I get some dates and information.
Okay. It sneaks up on us, and it particularly sneaks up on anybody that might be appointed for the first time, as it did me the first year. So I was just curious if that was potentially a factor, because in past years they've done it
Dan, have you
remotely.
seen anything on the league training?
I'll double check it. You're correct. It's usually like right after the appointments, but we'll double check. I'd have to look and see.
Yeah, usually they send out a lot of information, and I don't think anybody's seen anything, so I guess we better check and see what's going on.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, thank you very much. We have one big item left, and that's a motion to adjourn. Do we have such a motion? Commissioner Davis?
Yeah.
All right.
Motion,
We have
hey,
a motion.
yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Gibson. All in favor, aye? Aye. Thank you. Well done, everybody, tonight.